we are about to welcome to the stage the wonderful, the awesome, and the excellent Jurgen Appelo, who's going to talk to us about versatile organization design within the unFIX model. Welcome him to the stage. Your warmest round of applause, Jurgen.
Right. I won't bother you with music. I promise you that. All right. So it's good to be here. Post-COVID, the sizes of the audiences are getting bigger. This is awesome. People coming back to events. I finally, again, have a size of a podium that fits my ego. I'm very, very happy with that. I am from Rotterdam, the Netherlands. This is one of the pictures of the buildings there, the Q buildings. I have a friend who lived there. She said, I had to vacuum clean the walls. It looks awesome, but it's rather inconvenient living there. I was happy that Sam asked about what is your association with the word run? Because my association was the run I did this morning in Budapest and the last couple of days since Sunday. Because I run a little bit. I ran a marathon recently. It didn't go that well. I finished, but it was only 4 hours and 35 minutes, much too long in my opinion. So I'm going to try again, and there are methods for that. There are methods to help you run marathons. So for example, one of them is the run less, run faster method. It says when you practice, you should do 3 days of 3 days of running and 2 days of cross training. Well, that doesn't work for me because I travel all the time. I cannot bring a bicycle or a swimming pool on my back. So the method doesn't work for me. Another one is the Hansen's marathon method. It says that the longest run should be about 26 kilometers when you practice. Well, I have done a few of 30 plus. I know I can do that. So I don't think this is a good method for me. And then there's another one which has a lot of tables of instructions. I actually have the book, the physical version of this book. It is page after page of instructions like on Tuesday you do 10 kilometers but slowly, on Wednesday 5 but fast, on Thursday you take a break, on Friday and so on. And I was flipping through the book and I went, oh my God. This is demotivating. I didn't want to run anymore. I wanted to drink after reading that book, basically. It is no coincidence that the author's name is Jack Daniels, as you can see there. There is something fishy going on, in my opinion. But anyways, what is it that the real marathon runners do?
Eliud Kipchoge, let's keep an eye on the clock. Into the final 20 seconds. Eliud Kipchoge. Whoa! On his shoulder, 140, the unofficial time.
There's his wife.
Eliud Kipchoge storms into the history books in Vienna. 1:59.40, the unofficial time. The first man to run a marathon in under 2 hours.
So Eliud Kipchoge, the fastest runner on the planet right now, basically, he has his own method. He does some fast runs, easy runs, like everyone else. 3 to 7 months of preparation, bread, fruit, ugali. That's a special African maize flour porridge. I sense a business opportunity here. The ugali framework. I'm going to certify people in that. Sounds interesting. Strength and mobility exercises. He does his own thing, basically. And I think that's something that I had to learn as a professional. You make your own method. You create your own thing. It is the novices who are helped with the books and the standard frameworks, implementations, and so on. But when you really know what you're doing, you should create your own method. You should create your own framework, like Eliud Kipchoge has done. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell is he on about? I have a point, I promise. I have a point. But I'll get to that. I went to China a long time ago. I met Mr. Zhang, the CEO of Haier, a large company. And I share this all the time. One of my favorite anecdotes. I was in the room there doing a workshop for 30 people, my Management 3.0 workshop, and I had an interpreter next to me, translating everything. And he called me Professor Jurgen all the time. I didn't mind. I was okay with that. And I'm a person who likes to crack a joke every now and then, and people in the room were always laughing after the translation. They were always laughing at my jokes. And I thought, this is suspicious. I don't trust this. So in the evening, I asked him, what do you do when one of my jokes doesn't easily translate into Chinese? And then he said, well, in that case, I say, Professor Jurgen just made a joke. We all have to laugh. Brilliant. Love this. And the guy had no sense of humor, so I'm sure he was honest there at the same time. But anyways, Hire is called the most creatively managed company in the world. They are 4,000 autonomous units of 20-ish people that collaborate with each other.
The most eye-catching element of Hire's reinvention is the change in organizational structure. The hierarchical pyramid was pulled down and replaced with a network of more than 4,000 highly autonomous micro-enterprises. Typically, a micro-enterprise employs 10 to 15 people and functions as a separate business. These independent units contract with one another to deliver products and services.
And they asked for my advice. How do you run such a network? And I was like, I've never seen something like this before. This is amazing. This is the last place on earth that I expected to find a market-driven company in China. That was awesome. But it answered this question from organization design. How do we create companies that are constantly and quickly changeable? Hire is constantly and quickly changeable because they are a network of small units, not a hierarchy. And since then, I've been trying to figure out, how do we make such companies? What kind of advice can I offer them? How do they self-organize with those small units and then find each other to create good stuff? Well, some of my inspiration is from what we call pattern languages. The first person who used the word pattern language is Christopher Alexander. He wrote a book with 253 patterns on architectural design and urban planning. So, for example, he said one good pattern in cities is the public square. I'm sure you know what a public square is. They have them everywhere. Streets converge in a sort of square-ish area, and then there were probably some trees and benches where people can sit, and it's a nice place to be. I call this a public square. It's in my hometown, Rotterdam. I think it's an awesome building, so I think this one counts. And then another pattern is the promenade. Have a somewhat wider street through the city where people like to stroll, and there are some activities along the way, probably some shops, and it's a nice area to be. Again, we see them in many different cities. The Children's Way, I cheated a little bit because I just think this is an awesome building in Rotterdam. So as you can see, I'm a little bit proud here. The Children's Way is offering children a way to get through the city without having to cross busy streets with tunnels or bridges or whatever. That's also a good pattern. As you see, I'm a little bit chauvinistic here, but I'm sure you'll forgive me there. But the point is that a pattern library is a coherent set of micro-solutions to common problems. But you have to recombine them. Because Budapest is not Rotterdam, but both have public squares and promenades and children's ways. I saw them all, just in different combinations. We have to create our own method framework according to the context. We do not follow a blueprint, a framework for how to design a city. That makes no sense. Interestingly enough, I'm sure some of you know this book, Design Patterns from the Gang of Four. They adopted the same idea and came up with architectural patterns for programmers. Model view controller, the facade, the singleton, I still know them. I don't know how to do them anymore, probably. But, and the funny thing was, or the sad thing, back then, there were already people who turned the book into frameworks, specifically in Java and .NET, implementing all the patterns from the book, and then selling that as a framework you could install. And I was like, oh my God, this was not what they meant. You should pick only the patterns that apply in your context. You just leave the rest in the box. Don't install everything. So I've been trying to find what are decent patterns in organization design. What makes sense for us to organize ourselves? Well, one that I borrowed from the Spotify model is the tribe. The relatively small group of people that we feel a sense of belonging to. I was part of a large consultancy company 20 years ago. I was rented out, or my brain was rented out, basically to a client to do .NET programming. My feet had to bring my brain there, basically. And I only knew the three people on my team. I loved my team. I didn't care whatsoever about the rest of the company because I only knew my manager, who decided how much I got paid, and I only knew the HR person who made sure I got paid. And those were the only people I knew. I had no home, I had no tribe, I had no base. So I call this the base pattern. Try to give people a sense of belonging, a relatively small number of people. That's a good pattern to have. And then of course we need teams. I like the word crew, by the way, because the word team is so overloaded these days. Sam discussed having words having too many meanings nowadays. I think team is just another one. So I like the word crew, a small team on a mission with a defined goal. And I borrowed 4 patterns from team topologies. I saw that Matthew Skelton or Manuel Pais is here tomorrow, so definitely recommend listening to him, because these 2 guys already gathered 4 patterns. I simply had to borrow them, and I made slight adjustments to fit my pattern library that I call the unFIX model. The first one is an obvious one, the value stream crew. You know them, the Scrum teams, Kanban teams, they have end-to-end responsibility, the autonomous teams delivering value. Been there, done that if you've been part of the agile community. But the exceptions are the other 3, the enabling team that I call a facilitation crew. They offer help to those Scrum teams, to those Kanban teams. They try to help them do a better job. And the idea in team topologies is that this is a temporary arrangement. They should be able to do this themselves, that work. But it is nice to have someone to help you out. Well, I have a spouse who has a personal trainer. I can tell you, when the personal trainer is on vacation, no exercise happens. And I don't get it. I said, well, you could go for a run, you could do the workout on your own. No, I'm not in the mood, I'll wait for him to get back. Okay, whatever. So I do see the same with teams. They sometimes like those coaches being around, helping them to raise the bar and improve. I don't see anything wrong with that. So that's the purple one that they go across. Then the red one is what I call the capability crew. In team topologies, they call that the complicated subsystem team. That is for the idea that sometimes components or subsystems are so complicated that you need people with very rare special skills simply to work on those. You cannot just delegate that work across all the Scrum teams. Like, you have 20 Scrum teams and 2 people who know all about machine learning. You're happy to have just 2. You cannot have that knowledge across all the teams. Actually, that would overload their brains. The cognitive load would be too much. So there's a special case. It is sometimes okay to have that team. And then I say, well, it's actually about the talent, the capability of these people that is apparently the bottleneck that allows you sometimes to have this as an exception. So they sort of hover around, offer their rare capabilities where they are needed. And then the last one, the green one that I borrowed from team topologies, is the platform team, the platform crew, as I call it. Same thing, although every bit of explanation I have read in team topologies has examples of IT-oriented services, like DevOps services, infrastructure, whatever, offered to the other teams. Fine with that. But I was at a company in Poland before COVID, in Katowice, Future Processing. They had kindergarten on site. Lots of young people working there. In the morning, they could bring their babies, their toddlers, throw them in the basement, go have work all day long, and then by the end of the afternoon, there was sort of this implicit contract, they would still be alive and healthy. That was a service. That was a human service, but it was a platform team, the kindergarten team downstairs in the basement, they offered that service, and people were very happy with that platform team. So that can also be a human service, in my opinion. And then those are the 4 I borrowed from team topologies, but there are a few more that I want to point out. I recently, well, last year I bought this phone. I love my phone, but Pixel 6. Of course, I bought it 3 weeks before the Pixel 7 came out. That's how it works with me. You know how it is when you buy a new smartphone. You have to re-authenticate on every freaking app on the phone all weekend long. It drives you completely insane. So yeah, I had to make a bank transaction with my banking app, and it said, oh, this is a new phone. Yeah. You have to authenticate. By the way, you have to change your password. It has expired. You have to do that on the website. Okay, so I go to the website, enter my old password, my new password twice, and it says, in order to validate, please use your app. But the app doesn't work. I have to change my password first, but in order to change the password, I need a validated app. I was stuck in the middle between an app that was working fine and between a website that was working fine, but in the middle, life sucks. And this is the typical outcome of an agile transformation, in my opinion. Because we have now, instead of vertical silos, we have horizontal silos. We have different teams offering different things to customers, and all is well, but behold the customer who has touch points on various products and services. Life is still difficult for them. So that's why I suggest, or actually I have that advice from this book, Network, Scale, and Agile. It is best to have an experienced crew. At least some people, user journey experts, service designers, business analysts, whatever. A couple of people who look outward and look at everything that might go wrong between all the touch points of all your services. That's a special skill. Even most product owners don't have that skill. You need some people for that to separately in some organizations. And because I put that one on one side, I think it also makes sense to have it on the other side for any partnerships, vendors, suppliers, gig workers, etc., because they deserve a decent experience with the organization as well. Last but not least, this is my earlier work on Management 3.0. The managers have to go somewhere, over there in the box, and don't come out. That's where you stay. That's where you do your management-y stuff, managing the system, not the people. Stay out of the teams. That is the idea of having a very flexible base that can reorganize at any moment. So 7 patterns that I found useful. But we're not there yet. Sometimes a team has to be formed fast. If something happens here in Budapest and the news item has to be prepared for the 6 o'clock news, they send a sound engineer and a camera person and an interviewer, and off they go. They do not have time for trust exercises. They do not have time for forming, storming, norming, performing. No, that doesn't work. They have to go and do their thing. They're professionals. They know how to do their work, even in any different combination of people. It's the same with fire departments. It's the same with hospitals and so on. I believe this afternoon we have Heidi Helfand somewhere, speaking here somewhere at the conference. You should check that out because she can tell you all about reteaming, about the benefits of working with different people every now and then. The environment might force us to restructure on the inside and offer services in different combinations of people. But also, it could be good for the employee experience. Because some people like working with different technologies every now and then, different people, and not the same ones for several years in a row. This guy says, if it hurts, do it more often. Kent Beck, Ken Beck, of the Agile Manifesto, one of the 17, and he meant software releases 20 years ago. And for 15 years, I've been part of the Agile community, and everyone has always said, don't change your team, because if you change your team, you hurt their velocity, you hurt their throughput. Well, if it hurts, do it more often. Figure out why it hurts and solve that problem, because otherwise you're just preventing the symptoms. Right? So it makes sense to train yourself in reteaming. There are companies doing that, by the way. I have this little diagram that shows the boundary of the team that can be permanent. So over there we have the steady teams together for a long time, and there's nothing going in and out. Team members stay within the same team. That's the standard situation, you could say. But over there, the dynamic team, there are blog posts by Redgate Software. They do this every year. It's a standard process, reteaming, and people volunteer to work on another team. They're happy with it. The teams are permanent, but people move in and out. At the bottom, we have the short-term teams. Mission teams at Tesla, they do the reteaming every 3 hours. It's amazing. Every 3 hours, they form different combinations of teams. Joe Justice does talks on that. And then for the duration of those 3 hours, the team stays the same. It's very much like the crew on an airline. Very difficult to change the team mid-flight. Not recommended. So the team stays the same for the duration of that goal. And over there, the liquid team, that's like the construction crew that worked on my house last year. Every morning, I was making coffee for different people. I had no idea who was coming today. But the work was done, and they knew each other, and they knew what to do. So for that reason, I offer a concept I call it turf. There's the domain or the territory within which reteaming is easy. That's the reason why airlines like to standardize on one type of plane, because that makes reteaming easier. You don't have to learn 7 or 8 or 10 different types of planes as pilots and secretaries. So you can do the same in organizations. I was very much inspired by Kadri, who is here, of Pipedrive, when they published the Pipedrive Agile Framework 2 years ago, where they described how they did reteaming. They have on every tribe, I call that a base, 20-ish people, they have one launch pad that's permanent, but people move in and out, so that's a dynamic team. And they had mission teams, temporary for new features, but those stick together until the feature is done. So those were the mission teams. And then there was a constant rotation within each tribe. If you've been on a launch pad for too long, you're expected to go on a mission. But if you've been on a mission a couple of times, you're expected to go back to the launch pad, where we do maintenance and bug fixes. So this still satisfies, you build it, you own it. However, you know you can focus on maintenance for a while, and then when you're on a mission, you know that other people will take care of the bug fixes and the technical debt and so on, and you can focus on your mission. I think this is a very elegant solution to have that reteaming within one relatively small tribe. So that's a combination of the mission team and the dynamic team that Pipedrive invented. They had no idea about these terms, this terminology, because I haven't even started with the pattern language at the time. They had to invent this myself. So that's the idea of offering a pattern library, that people see what is possible and then think, maybe we can combine these patterns and do something for ourselves. So I like to use the word Lego. Let's do a test. How many people are in the room who love Lego? Let me see some hands. How many Lego fans? All right, look at that. And now, very important question. How many of you love Playmobil? How many of you play? Over there, kill them. Over there, they're over there. I had a fight with my brother when I was young. I was the Lego guy, and he was into Playmobil, and I didn't understand it. When I got a Lego castle, it was a castle for one day, and then the next day, it was a dragon. And the day after, it was a spaceship. Right? But with Playmobil, you got a castle, and then it was a castle forever. You could take it apart, but you would have a broken castle. I didn't get that idea. So a pattern language is like Lego. It is not like Playmobil. And frameworks and methods, they're more like Playmobil. You get what's in the box, you implement it, and that's it.
So our first satisfying trick is this small cube, and when I take it apart, you can see how it's made. I used 4 2x2 plates and 4 of these 1x2 panels for the outside of the cube, and to connect them all together, I used a singular 2x2 tile. When you're finished, you have a perfectly shaped cube, and Minecraft Steve approves. I believe this is an illegal building technique, so be checking your window to make sure the cops aren't outside when you do this. You can...
I love that this is an illegal building technique with Lego. I hope at some point people are going to make videos about the illegal building techniques with the pattern language that I am launching. So it's an options list. It's not a shopping list. I can offer you similar patterns about guilds and forums, but I'm not going to do that. I can offer you similar patterns about roles on teams, but I'm not going to do that. Or how to do decision making, lots of different ways of making decisions, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to skip all that. We have to start simple. And some people ask, where is this already implemented? Well, lots of organizations around the world, millions, are already doing some of these patterns. They're just not yet using the language. Like cities already existed, strange enough, before the book A Pattern Language came out with good patterns for creating cities. But since then, the book has been useful for people involved in other cities. So no, we're not going to implement the unFIX model. There's a Miro template, and there's a tool coming up pretty soon. There are organizations already using lots of these patterns. But I want to end with a final story. So I came there in China 10 years ago at the airport. There was a limousine waiting for me. There was no limousine here in Budapest, by the way. I looked, couldn't find it. No idea. But so anyways, might have been a mistake. So I stepped into the limousine, and there was a sticker on the inside of the door. It was 2 nearly naked guys, one with his thumb up and the other with an ice cream. I was like, okay, interesting, whatever. So we took off, and then we went to the big campus, the office campus of Haier, the big Chinese company. And then at the entrance, when we got in, I saw a huge statue. A statue of the nearly naked guys, one with his thumb up and the other with ice cream. And I looked at the statue, and I was trying to text my husband back home, like, China is not what I expected. Surprise. So, and then the guy next to me said, do you like the statue? I said, interesting, yeah, fascinating. And he said very proudly, this is our company logo. Fascinating. Super cool. Do you want to know about the logo? Tell me everything. I want to know about the logo. How do you get such a logo? So he told me that Haier started as a company that makes fridges and ice machines, etc. And they more and more deliver those ice machines to Europe. That's the blonde boy with the ice cream in his hand. And the other one is the Asian boy, the Chinese boy. And Haier is known for high-quality stuff. There's a thumb up. So we make high-quality stuff to our customers in Europe who enjoy their ice cream. And we're friends. We're friends. It's awesome, yeah. And they wear nearly nothing because Haier is famous for being in Qingdao, which is in the northeast of China, which is on the beach. Aha, okay. That's a great logo. I love the logo. It doesn't translate well to European norms and standards, but that's okay. That's okay. Now we understand the story. So some people ask me, Jurgen, why is the unFIX model so colorful? I cannot sell this to my managers. There's too many colors. And why are people smiling? Nobody's smiling in my organization. That doesn't look realistic. And then I said, well, it's not about the picture, okay? You have to maybe do some translation. The patterns are the same, but maybe you have to translate this to your management in a way that they understand, yeah? That this is more familiar to them. That's up to you. You may have to do that translation. So if you want to know more about Haier, there's a book called The Startup Factory, which tells all about Haier, the way they were created and how they work now. Super inspiring. And just did my workshop here in Budapest. It was a lot of fun. More workshops upcoming in case you're interested. Go to the website, unFIX.com. The pattern library is evolving all the time. We're adding more patterns as we go. And maybe you can offer me a few more that we can be adding. Thank you so much for listening.
Jurgen, we have a question on the Slido. Are you ready? Slido. There we go. Yes. So there is a question, but for those of you who want to ask questions, go to slido.com, use the hashtag CraftConference2023. We'll get your question up on here. Jurgen will answer it. You'll be happy. Jurgen will be happy. The whole thing will be amazing. Can we see the question? I've seen it. I've seen it on the back end. If necessary, I will read it from my memory.
They're frantically looking for the question.
While they're doing that, Jurgen, I can tell you that the question was...
I don't know.
Here we go, there we go. It's not the question I remember, it's a different one. Studies pointed out that Tuckman model doesn't work for most of the teams. Why is it still a proper reference model?
Because it alliterates so nicely. Forming, norming, storming, performing, it's like poetry. I know it off the top of my head. It sounds good. What sounds good is easily repeated. It's a meme. You're asking me why are memes popular? Because they are memes. That's how we copy from brain to brain. But indeed, there's no science, valid science behind the Tuckman model. I think it's a useful model. It is interesting to talk about, but there's nothing really scientific behind it.
Thank you very much. The next one, Jurgen, where can I learn more about the unFIX patterns? Any trainings?
unFIX.com. The domain was available. Ta-da!
unFIX.com. Any more questions for Jurgen?
I see one.
Oh, there is one. If the company norm is having one person being the Scrum Master, I almost read that as the Scum Master, being the Scrum Master team lead, who codes and supports the app? How can we start moving to the direction described?
Step by step. I don't know the specific problem. Is that a problem if the company norm is having, okay, it's a norm, okay, having one person be a Scrum Master team lead who codes and supports the app? Yeah, probably a next suggestion would be to, well, you could experiment with patterns, but one pattern is the enabling team in team topologies, as just the facilitation crew. Same thing in my opinion. I think maybe they could start seeing themselves as a team, those Scrum Masters who work as team leads on various teams, and then slowly but steadily change the way they behave so that they are actually a facilitation crew or enabling team, and see that as the team they operate in. And then step by step they sort of move out and let the team be truly autonomous. That would be one scenario. I can imagine other scenarios, but I would have to know more about the specific context here. That's why we have coaches and consultants, by the way, and I'm not. I just draw pretty pictures. That's my job.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jurgen. Warm round of applause for Jurgen again.
All right.